Banana Zeus. My name is Marie Auyong. I've been a resident of Guam for about 9 years now. My mother's Chamorro. She split in the 70s when she met my dad, so I've actually been raised Senlagu, or stateside, and I moved back to Guam specifically because of the water. For the past 2 years, I've worked for a program called the University of Guam Sea Grant. I'm really lucky because it's a really flexible program, and what I do is basically community-based education around coastal science and science dealing with the sea. I try to make science really useful for the public. I try to make workshops that specifically address issues that they need to learn about. A really good example is that one day my dad asked me, he wanted to go swimming, and he asked, oh, when's a good time for me to go? I notice sometimes when I go to Taragi, the water is so low that I can't even swim. The water is maybe up to my shins. And I said, oh, well, why don't you just read the tide chart? He said, what's a tide chart? I said, oh, a tide chart is actually, you can predict the tides. You actually know when there's a low tide and where there's a high tide. And if you learn how to read a tide chart, you'll know exactly when the best time is for you to go to Taragi. So as a result of that conversation, I actually had a workshop for 2 hours where we actually had Miget Bevacqua come in. He talked about the culture of waves, basically how our ocean-going people relied very much on the ocean and the changes in the tides. And then we also had somebody come in from the Weather Service and talk about how they make tide charts and how they interpret that scientific data. And then we had another portion where we actually taught people how to read the tide charts. And so as a result of that, I'm hoping that people get in the water more and they have a more fun experience when they're actually able to snorkel and swim. As a result of history and as a result of colonization, actually a lot of our people don't know how to swim or they're actively afraid of the water. So one of the things that I've started doing in the past 6 months is actually taking adults and teenagers. We actually start out in the pool. We practice snorkeling. I try to help them get over their fear of water, sometimes their embarrassment, sometimes their shame. And then we're actually going to start getting into the ocean in a really calm, really safe place and to be really encouraged. I don't know about a lot of other people in Guam. I know that there are a lot of people who have learned how to swim jungle style, which is basically you go to the end of the pier and like your cousin pushes you in and you kind of flail around until you more or less make it to shore. I have a friend who actually got pushed off of a boat in deep blue water. He's still alive, but I think the experience traumatized him, and I don't think that that's an exceptional experience. The thing is I'm not a marine scientist and I'm not a marine researcher. I'm actually really more interested in issues of environmental justice. So it's one thing to care about the reefs, and I think obviously that's really important. For me specifically, being on Guam, I'm really concerned about people's access. So for example, here today we're at Tumon. This is the most easily accessible shoreline in all of Guam. A lot of the really good shoreline is actually on military bases, or it's on the eastern side of the island where you get stronger currents. Sometimes it's not as easy for people who are maybe not the most confident swimmers to be in that water over there. Great for surfing, not necessarily so awesome for like 3-year-olds who are just learning to get in the water. So for me, the issue is particularly with Tumon, historically this area has also been shut off to a lot of the civilian population when it was used for R&R. So I'm really concerned about people's actual access to the ocean, whether it's for fishing, whether it's for recreation, whether it's just even a place for them to connect to their culture. To me, that's really important that people can understand that they have the ability to affect that. In the past year, I've helped out with a fishing derby. I've done workshops on Chamorro fish ID. It's kind of amazing to me how many of our people don't know the Chamorro names for fish, and I think that that's really cool. I've done workshops on maritime archaeology. I'm doing snorkel clinics right now. In the next couple months, I'd like to do a fishing expo where people can learn like 4 different types of traditional fishing methods like chinchulu or talaza. I'm really excited about that. One of the things that I really want to push for is also women really to get engaged in the marine resources again. Historically, they've been engaged in the marine resources, but like I said before, because of colonization and history, there's been that break, you know? And I just want to tell them, hey, the women of Guam actually saved Guam by like weaving their hair into nets. So there's this actual thing. So let's go back because we're going to be called to do that again at some point, if not now. There's actually something very physical about having the water wash over you and not being affected too much by gravity in the same way that we're on land. Just that feeling of weightlessness and also just the massaging effects on the water, it's really therapeutic. So I don't necessarily think you need to get in there and do like a 1,600 meter lap swim in order to really benefit physically and psychologically and even spiritually. I think it's really good even just to like kind of wade in up to your knees or whatever you're comfortable and just kind of enjoy not only the feeling of the water, but also the sound of it. I think that's really important.